has already lost wide receiver Jamar Chase and defensive back Harry Benson, who both opted out. And with the defending national champions kicking off their season next Saturday at home against Mississippi State, and Orgeron was transparent earlier today about his team and COVID-19. Coach O had this to say to reporters: not all of our players, but most of our players have caught it. I think that hopefully they won't catch it again, and hopefully they're not out for games. Obviously, Greg, this is an ongoing issue. This is what has kept some teams from practicing, some games for being rescheduled. But what's your initial take on Orgeron's comments about the majority of his players at some point contracting COVID-19?
No, I'm not surprised. And I remember it being a big story back in June, Wendy. When LSU players returned to campus, they went to a place called Tigerland. That was a bar, and a lot of those players, as a result of that visit on campus upon their return, they contracted COVID-19. They had 30-plus results at that point. I would imagine with contact tracing and everything else that's gone on from that point moving forward, a few other guys probably got it throughout the course of June. I think they actually spiked after the July 4th holiday if you read and talk to people down in Baton Rouge. However, since they started a more controlled environment, a more, maybe a little bit more committed to the practice environment, guys haven't had that freedom, they haven't had that luxury and to go out and enjoy what it is to be a college student. So actually their numbers have been on a steady decline over the last few months, but I wasn't surprised at all to hear him say that, knowing some of the storylines that we had coming out of the summer and more specifically the July 4th holiday, Joey.
Greg, that actually makes me laugh to hear your take on that. You make it sound like we're talking about these guys caught a cold. I don't recall at any point in time hearing about the LSU program shutting down because of COVID. We've had all summer long teams shutting down, programs having to take time off because guys caught it. You make it sound like, oh, well, 30 guys caught it. They went to a bar. He's saying most of his players, and then backing that up with, I'm not sure how many. It just really sounds uninformed. And when you say, hopefully, my guys don't catch it again, that makes me worry. And so in this situation, when so many people have taken so many steps to be protected and worry about this situation, that sounds very uninformed. And if I was a player, if I was a parent with a player on that team, it would make me worry about the way he nonchalantly just threw that out there.
Well, I also think, too, they talked at length, Coach O and everyone associated with LSU, is we have to educate our guys. Like, they didn't take it seriously in June. They didn't take it seriously in July. Like, it's been a process to get to this point to where they finally understood the ramifications of the decisions that they're making. Now, they're never going to publicize the amount of guys that tested positive. They're not going to give us a list of names, guys who were out, guys who were in, guys who had to take some time in quarantine. They're not going to give us any of that. All we can hope is that now that they're in a football environment, Joey, and they're playing against teams, and they're out in the community, and they're playing against teams every single Saturday, all we can hope is that these guys have been smart over the last few weeks to avoid potentially exposing themselves to a virus that is remarkably problematic for the college football season. So I think it's something that we're going to have to continue to monitor, but I also think this is something that they've dealt with. They put it to bed, and hopefully it's not something they have to worry about moving forward.
Number one, it's not something that you put to bed because this thing is continuing. And my point is, that doesn't sound good. It's a bad look for Coach O, it's a bad look for LSU, and it's a bad look for the SEC. When a lot of people around the country already think that the SEC is taking this lightly. So you have a head coach, one of your main head coaches in the conference of the SEC, coming out saying, hopefully my guys don't catch it again. Well, it has been proven that people can catch it 2 times. And so when you have that out in front, and you're saying, hopefully, that doesn't make me feel comfortable if I'm on your team. It doesn't make me feel comfortable if I have to play against you. And when you say, I don't know how many of my guys caught it, that is a terrible look. It's awful. And this is what makes people worry. And this is why guys are opting out. And this is why players are saying we need a voice in the room because of statements like this from coaches, from leaders, from people who are making decisions. That is a terrible look by Coach O.
Well, what's also interesting, guys, and every conference has different protocols when it comes to COVID-19. In the case of the SEC, players don't have to be retested for 90 days if they've had a positive test. So when he talks about longer-term ramifications and players missing practice or missing games, clearly, it could be an issue because we're not going to know anything for a solid 90 days, Greg.
Yeah, and I think that's all part of the parameters, and I would imagine they have used the information provided them by their public health officials about what's a safe time frame to where you could potentially not have the antibodies to fight the virus anymore. Like, I'm not a doctor. I can't sit here and tell you whether or not it's going to ramp back up during flu season. All I can do is use the information that's been provided to us by people that are knowledgeable on the situation, and I'm going to trust the SEC. I'm going to trust all the football leagues that they are making sure that the players' health and safety is at the forefront. And that these players, by the way, you're mentioning a lot of guys opting out. LSU's actually had guys opt back in, Joey, to playing in the season. So, yeah, there are guys that are opting out that are not comfortable, but no one's being forced against their will to play. If they don't want to play and they're not comfortable with the parameters, then by all means that they don't need to. That's for sure. So, Joey, I think it's a troubling thing without question. I don't disagree with you on what Ed Ogeron had to say. But I also think at this point he doesn't want to tell you too much about what they've gone through within the program.
There's no point in making the statement. You have to tell me anything. What I'm saying is, and you're right, none of us are doctors, but there is information out there that we have access to. And so the first thing I thought when he said, hopefully our guys don't catch it again, well, it's already been proven that you can catch it again. And so all I'm saying is, you're right. This is a decision made by players on a team, and they may decide to play. But when a coach, when a leader makes these kind of statements, it undercuts what people are believing, that these guys are doing everything they can to protect these players, and it comes across as uninformed. It comes across as nonchalantly throwing it out there. I don't know how many. And when you put hopefully in a sentence 2 times, you're talking about a medical situation. That doesn't make me feel good, and it doesn't make me feel good if I didn't go play against this team. That's all I'm saying. It's a terrible statement that makes the situation look worse.
Well, I tell you what, Greg, I was the first to agree with you that the Big Ten needs to fish your gut bait, but I'll circle back, and I do think these are the kind of things and the kind of issues that they're wrestling with when they take this to a vote, because this is what they're concerned about too. So a lot of different opinions and a lot of conflicting information out there, but again, we will see. Let's talk about the weekend that was in college football.